Hello, hello. If you could take your seats, please, we're going to get started. I'd like to welcome all of you here in person and those here online. This is an exciting day. We have been at work for the last year to get to this point, and I can't think of a more beautiful setting to start to talk, spread to the congregation about the visioning that we've been doing and what we see for the future of our church. Our agenda today, we're first going to talk about why we're doing visioning. We'll talk about our process, our goals for this meeting today. We'll make sense of what we've heard from the community and from our congregation, and then present the initial plan. And then we'll talk about the opportunities for you to provide feedback. And if we have some time at the end, we will take questions. So I would like to, before we start here, just mention all of the members of the visioning team who have provided contributions to this point. Adam Brown, who you'll be seeing presenting in a little bit, Jean Ebersol as well, Erica Christensen, Sharon King, Sherry Felty, and we've also had contributions from Tom Churchwell and Patrick Hanley. And I'm Julie McConnell. Forgot to mention that part. Oh, and Pastor Jeffrey, and hello, Pastor Jeffrey and Pastor Cameron Trimble from a consulting firm, church consulting firm called Convergence. So you may not recall that it's been 10 years since we last did strategic planning. Mike remembers. Boy, a lot has happened in those 10 years. I mean, if we look at what's happened in the world, what's happened in the trends that we see, and even what's happened here at WCC, a lot of change in those 10 years. One major trend that we have to pay attention to is that people actually stepping into a church, that trend is tanking. And it's not just Protestant religion, it's every religion across the board, it's organized religion. And so that really, I think, lit a fire under us that we have to figure out what we can do. But that said, a lot of this plan is looking at other things we can do in addition to what we've done so far, but it's really key that we continue to nurture the core of what makes us special. So the things that we're doing right, we want to keep doing right, and we're looking for ways to add to that. And the basic goal and focal point is that we want WCC, which for the last 150 years has been a focal point of this community, to continue to be that in our community for generations to come. So this is the process. We've taken this on with open hearts and open minds. We recognize that this plan needs to be from the congregation, not just a group of people who sit in a room and think. And we've conducted quite a bit of research. We've partnered with experts who are aware of other trends that are going on in churches. And we also have planned to make sure that we have time to sit and think and synthesize all of the inputs. And then finally to allow some revision, reiteration to get to our final plan. So what we've been doing for the last year, we've conducted surveys and interviews. We've created assessments. You've received surveys output to see what we've been hearing. We've done webinars. You may recall the Futures Lab. And then from that, we've started the process of trying to synthesize and bring all this stuff together, the sense making. And today you'll see our draft plan. Notice that we're about halfway through. There's a lot more to do. The next step after today will be listening to what you have to say about this starting point. We plan to have a revised plan in another 6 weeks after Christmas, after the holidays. And we'll do additional listening at that point. And we're focused on final approval of the plan by the annual meeting in May. Okay, so this seems like an appropriate time to turn it over to Adam. Why am I here today?
I'm a pacer when I talk. So the main thing, why are you here today spending an hour with us when the Bears are kicking off soon? Mainly, we've been drinking from the fire hose. We have a lot of inputs over the last year. So we want to walk you through a lot of what those inputs are and kind of how we're bringing this together. So we want to help you make sense of everything we've heard in the last year. We want to share the draft plan, as Julie mentioned, and you guys have handouts, and there'll be a link to the plan. It's a living, breathing document. We will be evolving that over the coming weeks, and we want to let you know how you can engage. I mean, this plan's only as good as all of us being on board with it. It's speak now or hold your peace, but we'll have a lot of opportunity over the next 6-8 weeks to meet with small groups, spiritual life groups, fellowship, wine, women, and God. We'll be having some spiritual enrichment sessions, and then a couple just all hands opportunities, either in person or in Zoom, for everyone to kind of weigh in and provide feedback. So again, we've been drinking from the fire hose. Go ahead and go to the next one. And what we've seen through partnering with Convergence, and they've got access to a lot of data and surveys and assessments, as well as the surveys that you guys have done last September, I believe, and then another one in January. When we start at the macro level and we look at the world, Julie already touched on this, right? The last 10 years, I mean, change is a constant in society, but the last 10 years have been ridiculous. Social justice movements, anti-racism, financial markets, wars, refugees, climate change, the political extremism, both left and right. It's been a lot to deal with. And society's been changing. And then you throw a pandemic on top of that, and a lot of trends that we were seeing. Julie mentioned about how organized religion is not getting, butts in the pews anymore. The pandemic just kind of served as a catalyst and exacerbated a lot of these things. So people working remotely, there's been an exodus of young families from the cities out to the suburbs. Mental health has been a big deal. Loneliness, depression, addiction. It's not just something that's kind of marginalized or pushed to the side. It's been a broader acknowledgement that a lot of people were dealing with these things. So how do we make sense of that? Next one. When we look in kind of closer to home on the North Shore, Winnetka did I think it was a 2020 plan, 2040 plan. We took a lot of information from that. Convergence had a lot of data based on zip codes and all that. So when we look closer to home, the biggest concerns that the data has shown is everyone's still worried about COVID, not so much about getting sick as much as what does it mean now that we're over the hump and trying to get back to a sense of normalcy. There's a lot of tension, both in society and with politics. Mental health, as I mentioned, fear of the unknown, finances, the markets. People are kind of worried about the future right now. But what we found is in Winnetka, over half the people in Winnetka are not involved in religious community, and 21% have no religious preference. So that's addressable market for us, right? Jeffrey's talked about the nuns and a sense of people that quest for more spiritual fulfillment, but not necessarily organized religion. So we need to figure out, how do we reach out? How do we embrace this community? And how do we get active in our community and in embracing some of these folks who are not tied to organized religion today? Their reasons for not being part of religion are kind of what you'd expect. They think that, churches are just looking for your money. They're being very judgy. It's just got a bad rap over the last several years. There's not a lot of trust there and not relevant in their day-to-day life. People are busier than they've ever been. Everyone's overscheduled, and people just don't have time to engage. Also, we've seen that Winnetka is getting younger with the influx of folks coming in from the city, and how do we tap into that? So how are churches reacting overall? I think a lot of you have been part of the webinars that we had, and Cameron from Convergence kind of talked about some of these macro trends, but then also showed some examples of what churches are doing around the nation to embrace and kind of, break out of just the Sunday morning routine and stay relevant within their communities. And just a few examples I'll point out. There's one in Martha's Vineyard who have really embraced community ties and using the skills and the knowledge and the wherewithal of the congregation to be a welcoming place. They had a couple planes of migrants flown in, and within 24 hours they swarmed it and got legal services and health and food and shelter, and they really came together and used their ties within the community to become this kind of migration hub and ease a lot of that tension that was going on. We've got churches in New York that open their doors once a week and invite anyone that wants to come in for dinner, and they use that as kind of their worship. So they break bread together and get the message out, and it's a force for doing good. There's a church in Chicago that sold their physical building and decided that they wanted to tackle affordable housing. So they built a new facility that has complete with storefront and retail space. It's got affordable housing in the top several floors, but it also sets aside a space for worship. And they're bringing folks in and engaging the community in that way. There's a lot more examples too. There's places in Atlanta that wanted to be a small business incubator and help things with nonprofits and different .orgs. But what do these churches have in common? They all, with this visioning, they all decided things weren't working the way that they've always worked, so how do they stay relevant? But they have energy behind it. They got their congregation to buy into it, and they are charging forward. They do have a clear vision for what they want to do. They're not trying to cast the net too wide. They're picking one or two things and going deep with it and doing very well. They're all about experiences and having different front doors. So like I said, everyone's very kind of tied up and overscheduled these days. So how do you engage people when and where they want to be engaged? Give them multiple opportunities, not just on Sunday morning. They are very intentional about spiritual formation. And so as I mentioned, and Jeffrey talks about the nuns, they're very much, how do we engage these people? People want to do right in the world. They want to be a good person. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, Bible thumping Sunday morning in church. They're willing to change, and again, and Julie kind of built on this, we don't want to change what's working today. We love our Sunday morning worship. We love our spiritual life groups, our care and calling. We want to build from that. So it's cherish nostalgia, stick with what works, but don't let that be a blocker to change in the future. So over the past several months, we've done our own research, Patrick and Erica and Sherry and others. We've interviewed community leaders, and what we've seen here, specifically their input, is, Winnetka's getting a little younger, but things are strained and stratified. Everyone's kind of living in their bubble. There's not a lot of kind of community feeling. It's a weird kind of vibe going on right now. There's a lack of volunteerism. We see it even here. I mean, how hard is it to get people to raise their hand and step up and say, yeah, I'll help with rummage, or I want to do that. Everyone wants to be part, everyone wants to write a check, but there's not a lot of people willing to put in the time and effort to do things. And mental health, that's come up time and again. Everyone we talk to is saying that is now a very prevalent concern. Addiction, loneliness, depression, all that. As we interview young families and some of these nuns that come into the area, it's more about the spiritual side of it. It's less about religion and the Bible thumping. It's more that they want a good place to raise their kids. They want to show them the right way. They want to do and act in a positive force for good in the community. But they're overscheduled. They just don't have time. So they want to figure out, how can I engage in a meaningful way, but not necessarily at preset times during the week. We also reached out to some former members. We've had a lot of change in this church, obviously, some pastoral turnover and others. Everyone basically, there's a lot of different reasons that people left, but they felt like they weren't being heard and they weren't being engaged. A lot of them were here for families originally, and their children have kind of grown up and moved on. So if they were to come back, it would be for themselves, not necessarily for the kids anymore. But youth and the youth programs have been a central kind of theme. We've been hearing a lot about the strength of our youth programs, and that's obviously kind of fallen off in the last several years. So through the surveys that we got back from everyone here, what we learned about ourselves, and this is kind of doom and gloom, but it gets better. We are skewing older within our congregation. We have not had the influx of kind of younger members that we'd seen in years past. And in the survey results, the younger the respondents, the less likely they were to respond and say, yeah, this is a vibrant, growing place. It's kind of a sense that it's a little stagnant right now. We know membership's declining. We need to address it. People say we do have a lot of groups, spiritual life and fellowship and everything else, but folks, especially new members, are saying, well, it's hard to join. Like, how do I know about these groups? How do I engage? How do I reach out? So we need a better, call it an onboarding process or some kind of engagement, or just people to make warm introductions and handoffs and really come together as a congregation and form some of these bonds. We know we need to change, but people are kind of fatigued by it. The energy levels kind of dipped in recent months. We talk about being a house of worship for all people, but through the survey results, it's like, well, are we really? I mean, we're not the most diverse congregation, but we've got a ton of different backgrounds and faith backgrounds here, left and right, red and blue. Can we be a purple congregation? What's that mean moving forward? How do we all stay connected to each other? And we need, with membership, obviously there's financial concerns. Donations are down, so we need to figure out, do we need to tighten the belt? Do we need to streamline? How's all this come together? And our facility. Everyone loves our building, but it's underused right now because we don't have the membership. I mean, that entire wing over there is basically empty. So how do we take advantage of that? How do we use that to open the doors and reach out to the community and use this physical facility as a way to get people engaged with us? So good stuff is we are at an inflection point, and there has been a very real sense from the congregation. We've had close to 90% participation in the surveys. We had a packed room in Centennial for the Futures Lab, so I think we're all engaged and we're all willing to step up and see this through. We want this to be a successful, vibrant church moving forward. We love our core offerings. Like I said, we need to maybe get the youth program kicked up a little bit, but our Sunday morning worship, our choir, our music, our organ, these are things we don't want to touch. We want to use that to build upon. We are open-minded and open-hearted. I mean, we want to do the right thing. Care and calling and outreach and mission doing is a core construct of who we are here, and we want to maintain that. And we want to embrace the fact that we do have a very differing background of folks in here. We can tap into that. That's a strength. Next slide. Okay, so that's kind of what we've heard, and now I'm going to pass over to Jean, and she's going to talk about the initial plan. We come up with kind of 4 themes. She's going to walk through that and some of the initial goals and actions.
Okay. Thank you. So you can see we turned the fire hose now on you, not on us anymore, which is great. To come up with the plan, we really tried to address 3 strategic questions, and they were, how do we continue to strengthen and build connections among the community? How do we care for our children, our youth, our young adults, our elder adults, all the people who are here, and meet them at the varying stages that they are? And then how do we encourage and nurture the lives of participants? And you'll see in the plan, we don't talk about members as much as we talk about participants, because we need more people to be engaging with us, and we don't want membership to be a barrier to doing that. So, if we can go to the next slide. We had 4 themes that it ended up boiling down to, and I'm going to start referring to the handout that most of you have here, and for those of you who are online, it was in the link with the worship information that went out this morning, but if you are having trouble with that link, you can also go to the website, our website, Winnetka Congregational Church, under who we are, member access. You've got to put in the password, which is WCC member, and then all of the visioning documents are there. So even for those of you here, if you want to go back and refer to any of the webinars that we had, any of the survey data, it's all out there on our website. Okay, so let's talk about the 4 themes there: spiritual growth, congregational care and engagement, community engagement, and infrastructure and sustainability. So starting with spiritual deepening, we think that from what we learned, that churches are really supposed to be schools of love, where people come together to learn more about God, to think about their relationship to God, to one another, and with creation. And so we want to pull in people who aren't necessarily seeking that through the institutional church. As Adam mentioned, we want to have multiple front doors to do that, so that we try to imagine how we might connect with these individuals and families in addition to connecting with each other. So goal number 1 is that we will develop resources and experiences to support the spiritual growth of our children, youth, young adults, their parents and grandparents. And we want that grounded in the values of our congregation and our community. So no big shift in the values that we already have. We're going to provide, what we're committed to is providing more resources for families to connect and support them in their spiritual growth, to being in partnership with other church communities and other faith communities so that we're not reinventing the wheel. We don't have the staff, we don't have the funding, we don't have the people to do that. We need to make it easier for families at all stages and levels to participate with our church. That came through loud and clear, that it's a wonderful community when people are here, but we need to find a stronger way of embedding them with us. And we need to continue to foster opportunities so that interfaith communities and interfaith families and people who are questioning their faith can continue to engage with us. So what are some of the actions? And I'm only highlighting some of the things that we have in the plan. There's greater detail about all of this. Some of them you'll see, so we have here, it's in the plan, it talks about by the fall of 2024. So you'll see on some of the action items, in some of them we've put recommended timing, and others we've put 2020X, meaning that we realize this is farther out. We need your input to hear what your energy is around them, and then working with the council, we'll set the dates in January, and that will be part of the discernment process that we'll go through in the spring. So as I said, some of the action steps, providing Advent and Lenten resources that can be used by our families and also families in the community. We need to do a summer series for children to pull in children who need to have a place to go in the summer so they can hang out with us and have some fun. Including contemplative exercises and meditation in our church school. One of the things that came out in the 2040 Winnetka Strategic Plan was about social emotional learning and giving places for kids to reduce their anxiety and have a way to slow down in this crazy, fast-paced world. And then for other folks, us grown-up folks, providing centering prayer, meditation, Taizé services, things where people can come and engage with us at other times of the week. Okay, second goal is about building relationships and spiritual connections. I'm on page 4 now, if you're following along. With other faith communities, Christian and otherwise, through offering space and collaborating on projects. So this goal is about living out our unity with people of other faiths, increasing our focus on interfaith worship and ecumenical spirituality and connections. Many of the sort of 20 and 30-year-olds want an experience that is more ecumenical, that isn't just focused on one thing, but allows them an entry point for wherever they're coming from. So we want to support continuous learning about other faith traditions. Action steps, exploring and sharing our facility maybe with 1 or 2 other faith communities. So we allow Congregation Hakafah or invited them or worked with them to share our space during their high holy days, but why couldn't they be here all the time? Why can't the Muslim Community Center be here with us all the time and be involved in working in our building? It doesn't mean we would not have worship as we have it today. It just means there would be a lot of other things going on, and we would get to know other faith communities better. We want to align our lay programs with these folks for social justice and mission. Again, not reinventing the wheel. And that's really it on this one. Goal number 3 under spiritual growth would be shaping our worship experiences to incorporate contemplation, engagement, and learning, and I talked a little bit about that. Sunday worship is not for everyone, but you can see it's an important part of our congregation, so that will remain an important and engaging experience. We want to honor the fullness of our tradition and our values while at the same time bringing in other faith traditions, having other ways for people to honor God through music and prayer, preaching, study, etc. So the action steps, some of them are building intentional moments of contemplative reflection, and you got a little bit of that from Jeffrey this morning when he just asked us to breathe, which is always good. We want to incorporate things that come from other faith traditions into our worship experiences, so that if you have an interfaith family who is sitting here and one person is Christian and the other person is not, they can too feel welcome in our community. And then we love to see the little chapel open all the time so people can come in and pray. We had some feedback that our sanctuary during the week doesn't feel very much like a place of God and a place to come and sit in and be with God during the week. And so we'd like to create that. All right, then goal 4 is one of our longer visionary goals. So we really pushed ourselves to try to get out of the box. So you're hearing things that probably sound to you like tuning up what we have already. And this is one of the more out of the box ones that we really would like to get your feedback in. And as that is, we would like to create the North Shore Center for Spirituality. So become a center of excellence for this in the community. The mission would be to resource, connect, and support spiritual exploration of people seeking a deeper connection with the divine. This is on page 5. So again, we see with all of these people who have no faith community, who have nowhere that they're really calling their home for this, that we can accompany them in their spiritual growth. We want to draw in the people who are turned off by institutional religion, but still want to be connected to the sacred. We want to offer diverse practical resources and spiritual growth, and we'd like to see a lot of yoga, nature walks, meditation, stuff going on here all the time that people could come and be engaged in. The action steps here really are about a task force. When Jeffrey and I got together and we tried to chunk up when these things would happen, this was in, I think this goes through 2029. I think this was 2028 or something that we had that out there, because it would take a lot of thinking and a lot of planning to get something like that off the ground. Okay, let's move on to theme 2, and I'm on page 6 now if you're following along. So what do we mean by congregational care and engagement? What we mean is that we want to be a broad-minded and dynamic church. We want to continue to worship, learn, share, and work with each other. Yes? Thought maybe she didn't have the handout, but she has a question. So we're going to hold that till the end, and we'd be happy to hear more about that. We're particularly concerned about our children. We don't want to take our relationships with each other or with the church for granted. We want to bring that more to the fore. And we continue to see caring for children, young adults, and youth as a core calling and responsibility of our congregation, and want to put time and talent towards that. We want to continue to encourage personal involvement in getting people connected, and we want to nurture one another at all stages and all life cycles that people might be going through, whether it's having teens, kids going off to college, whether it's your children are asking you to move into an assisted living facility and you don't want to give up your home. All of those things are important, and people are coming onto them and maybe not having the support that they need. So goal number 1, we want to have a robust offering of small groups to increase connection and this sense of community. They would function as a central point of mutual support, care, and education. We also want to support groups that are created in different ways. So a group could be a mission trip that goes for a week, and these people bond. So how do you support that group? It could be a women's retreat where you go off for just a period of time. Those groups need to be able to stay connected and be ongoing, not necessarily just happen and fall away. We want to have a process for how people, these participants that we're talking about, can be on the periphery of our church and still be pulled in and engaged with what we're doing. So some of the actions, we want to get a more operational strategy for how we might do that. This, which would be linking together the prospective members and all of the groups so that they can work on that. We need to also train and recruit lay leaders to lead these various small groups. With only 2 pastors, we need to make sure that we are ministering to each other in their absence. One of the visionary items here is to create a monthly dinner church whereby we would come together, we would cook dinner, we would invite the community, and we would just engage with each other and get to know each other better. That would be outside of regular spiritual groups. Goal number 2 would be to bring back the Elaine, if those of you who were here when Elaine Clemens was here. We really think we need an engagement coordinator. We need somebody whose job it is to link all of these pieces together, to take the new member and get them connected in a way that helps them access all the great parts of our church. We also need, in addition to a human, we need better database and we need better systems to keep track of who people are, what their areas of interest are, and how we can utilize their skills and abilities to further what we want to create in the community. So the action steps are getting this role staffed and prioritizing that, looking at the membership database, looking at an online engagement platform, and this would be something like Discord, or think of it as instant messaging within our community and within your groups within the community, so that 24/7 you can be reaching out to somebody who you know is in a small community with you. Okay. Flipping forward then, I'm on goal number 3 on page 8. This goal is really about making it easy for people to connect with us through strategic communication, streamlined technology. I've talked a lot about the reasons why we think that's important. One of them is to, certainly there have been many improvements. Patty's done a lot of things to get our calendar out there and give people easy ways to look at things in our website. The messaging ministry did a lot of work. We need to bring that back, and we need to work and make that more clear. We'd like to see that online engagement platform that I talked about and 360 profiles for everybody who's in the church. All right, theme 3 then is community engagement. We want to look at the root causes of some of these issues that are going on in our community. We were really kind of distressed by the things that we saw in the reports and heard about the lack of connection to a spiritual community there is here, and the increase in mental health issues and anxiety among young kids. So how can we help and partner with others to do that? So goal number 1 is to, again, be a hub for things that are happening in the North Shore. We do that. We talked about this earlier by making our space available, by finding service providers who could be in our space all the time, like Samara Care Counseling, who are here some days a week, but why couldn't they be here all days a week to help support things that are going on? Hosting concerts, hosting art exhibits, getting more people in and out of the building, and maybe even considering opening our doors as temporary shelter for people who are experiencing domestic violence or homelessness at the last, in an emergency. So we'd like to continue to explore the connection between Rummage and Go Green as well. And it's all about environmental stability and how can we get more of the community involved in that. Create the monthly dinner church, we talked about that, and then utilizing our space for the arts. All right, goal number 2 around community then, I'm on page 10. This is one of the more visionary ones, would be another center of excellence for faith, mental health, and addiction. We see that maybe we could stand at the intersection of faith, mental health, and addiction for people. It's shown that if people have a sense of purpose and they have a sense of grounding, it helps make their recovery better, or they're dealing with things that go on in their everyday life. So what we would like to do again here would be start a task force. This would be something that we would see out towards the end of the strategic plan. Once we get the other pieces underway, this would probably be a little bit further down the road, but we're really looking for your interest and feedback on this one. Goal number 3 is to enhance our marketing strategy, to have a church whereby, again, we know who you are, we know where you are, we know who's coming to be with us, how do we get to them, how do we make it easy for them to access us. Christy, we want to re-up the messaging ministry, bring that back, and again, integrate the work of this group with the engagement coordinator and the prospective members committee. And this also calls for a real look at our database and the online platforms. Finally, the fourth theme is infrastructure and sustainability. If we're not here, none of this exciting work can happen. And we want to be designed and funded appropriately to fund the vision, whatever it turns out to be. This is just our first stab at it. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. So our first goal is that the Executive Committee and Council would conduct an integrated review of the overall church. So if the plan is approved, if you say, hey, here's what we want to do in May, we would want these things to happen in the fall of 2024 in time for the budgeting process of 2025. And from our way of thinking, nothing is off the table, meaning the facilities, the organizational design, the lay ministry, the staff structure, the bylaws, whatever we say the vision is, all of that needs to be looked at. So that would be the first goal. And then goal number 2, this is on page 12, is to utilize the database and instant messaging tools. So you've got to have a platform, a technology platform that's going to drive all of these people coming in and out of their building and all the things happen. Patty is amazing, but Patty can only do so much. Okay, and then the last goal under this would be to develop a sustained approach for annual giving, planned giving, and special gifts for the church. We have people every year who step up and help drive our pledging campaign, but we never really have said, these are our values around responding to God's call, and how we're going to do this. We want to develop a clear set of values and practices so that each year it's not so difficult to run the pledge campaign. And the other thing that needs to be thought about as part of this would be, how do we talk to all the people who are coming in and out of our building about how they can support the works of the church that they might be participating in. So, phew, do you feel like that was a fire hose full of information? It is, but Julie's going to tell you how we're going to help you process that information and get your feedback.
Okay, so this is where you guys come in. We would like for you to engage directly with what you've seen today and what we've handed out. And we want you to think about 4 things. The first thing is, what excites you? What have you heard here that you think, yeah, I want to be part of that? The second is there something that doesn't feel right? That it's the opposite. You think that that's not going to work for me. The third is, have we missed something? Is there something else that you can think of that you think is important that we should consider? And finally, how specifically would you like to help bring this to fruition? So we're not going to be sitting back watching others do it. Everybody's going to be involved. We have several opportunities for engagement that are coming up. You can see the list of scheduled opportunities: Wine, Women, and God, spiritual enrichment groups, men's fellowship. If you don't see an opportunity here that's going to work for your schedule, please reach out to someone on the team or to our website, and we'll make an appointment. You can meet one-on-one. You can meet with a small group. It's up to you, but we really, really ask for your feedback, and we value what you have to say. So just to give you a sense of the flow of things going from here, in November, so really over the next 6 weeks or so, we'll be getting feedback from you on what we've presented today. In December, while Jeffrey and Alan and staff are preparing and covering the holiday stuff, there's a lot to do here then, the visioning team will be working on revising the draft based on what we've heard from you. In January, we will be presenting that to council and ask for council's revisions. And then that gives us another iteration to present again in February to council. Is this what you have in mind? On March 3rd, we will be presenting that revised draft to the congregation again. And March 16th, please mark that in your calendars. That's going to be our day of discernment. A day for congregational feedback, congressional might be good. We're not going to raise it to that level yet. And then any final edits will happen in April. May 5th is our annual meeting, and at that point, you'll all have an opportunity to vote, and hopefully, and it's Sammy's birthday, maybe we'll have cake. Anyway, hopefully we will ratify the plan at that point, and then we can start working toward our vision for the future. That's it. Can we take a couple questions? Are there any questions, comments? Eleanor? Here. Wait.
I'm very pleased with this presentation. I'm overjoyed to see that we're going to be interacting more with other groups, other interfaith groups, and utilizing the building more. And I really think this sort of works. And this morning I heard from somebody from Samara Care, and she had said to us there are 4 stages of integrating people and making them feel a part of a group. And they were being seen, being safe, being soothed and secure. And I think there's so much to be done in this area. Thank you.
I was saying that, do you have things like where I can take home and sell things like T-shirts, tours to church, baseball caps, socks, little things like that, keychains and things that can sell and donate back to the church, as opposed to donating cash or a check? You can donate, I can sell that and then bring it to the church.
I know we have a lot of hats.
Yeah, more swag.
Thanks, Verna. Anybody else?
So one of the things that came up was messaging ministry, and I just wanted to say that I think when it was working, it was great, and we were reaching outside our doors, but what became evident is that we were not authentically representing ourselves, meaning that we were showing that we had all this stuff and all this great, wonderful programming and everything, but we really, when you got here, there was 2 people. So we have to really work on amping up what's happening in the building before we can message it. We can't put the messaging before the programming.
Point taken.
Hi, can you please just pop up the link or the email where we can all just put in the suggestions, because there's so many of us. Thank you. Perfect. And we'll come up with something.
Yeah, is it in the handout? The question is the email address on the back.
Vision team
Yes.
at Winnetka Congregational Church.
Do you see it? Yeah.
.org comes directly to my mailbox. It's really great.
There are also forms in the narthex where you can write down a question, and there's a little box you can put it in. There.
Clarifying, it says in the handout, it says .com, and up there it's .org. Is it .com or .org?
.org.
.org.
Thanks. Good eye. Is it? Oh, there's an online question.
Online question, I love it.
Thank you.
Question from our online audience, and this is from J.S. Hedberg. What do you mean by spiritual? That word means different things to different people.
Yes, it does, which is exactly the problem, JS. You're right on it. That we have to talk about, and we have to figure out what that means because it's different for every person. And so, what the spiritual center would be has to really be thought about. And how do we engage these folks? I don't know, Jeffrey, as a spiritual director, do you have any comment on what spiritual is? And thanks, JS, for the question.
JS asks the best questions always. What's the meaning of spiritual? Jean responded very well. It does mean different things to different people. It's a broad word for a broad topic. I just happened to be doing some research on that this morning because a group, another church where I do some consulting, asked me that same question. So I said, there's got to be something online about that, and I found a resource online, a little video that actually expanded my own understanding of the word spirituality. So it is an evolving term, but just for me, it means connecting with things that matter and things that last. Things that are within us and in our everyday living. But taking the time to actually reflect, notice, and name and experience those things rather than just being too busy to really take note and have that experience of divine presence, like we usually do. It's always there, but do we notice? Spirituality is about noticing these deeper meanings of life and purpose. That would be my definition, but other people would have their own. Carol has a comment. Can I give the mic to her? Okay. Wait, before you speak, wait.
To add what Jeffrey was saying is not only discerning, but I think also building, finding a way of building on those relationships, those experiences that we have. Noticing and then continuing to build and encouraging people to build on those relationships to enrich our lives.
What a great person to be on the task force.
On a less cerebral level, I wanted to ask the Visioning Committee if you at any point, and I've just noticed over the past couple of years, the trend among the Roman Catholic communities to combine, and I'm certain this is for economic reasons, I'm not certain, but I drive past parking lots if I'm not at my beloved WCC on Sunday morning and see that they're equally as empty. I see banners that I think they're trying to appeal to trends. Did you discuss this? Did you discuss the houses of worship like ours that are sitting empty, that have a dearth of children? And what's a prevailing thought?
So, yes, we spent a lot of time talking about that. In the end, instead of listing out, here's who we could possibly partner with, we thought we'd start with the interfaith and build a center where we could be together. So having Hakafa or the Muslim Community Center here. But again, this is something that's open to feedback from all of you. But that's where we ended up with our stake in the ground was let's get more interfaith working together in the building rather than merging with another church that's exactly like we are. But that's not to say it couldn't happen or shouldn't happen.
And I wouldn't even say merging necessarily, but I mean, when you look at like the youth program, we're already reaching out to Kenilworth Union and others. How do we partner? How do we pull resources? And, you know, youth group might not have to be a specifically WCC thing. It can be something that rotates between them. Like, there's a lot of options there, but I think everything's on the table right now.
Yeah, I was going to answer the same way that Adam just did, that rather than merging is always something we can talk about at some point if it's needed, but we can always look at ways of partnering with other congregations So, two examples. Mary Miklas, our new director of youth ministries, and I attended just this last week on Tuesday a meeting on Wednesday with 5 other congregations talking about let's do something together with youth, because each church is having trouble bringing together a critical mass that makes it comfortable for people knowing that, oh, there will be people there. So WCC and 5 other churches met on Wednesday just to start talking about maybe 1 or 2 ways we can take a step in that direction. That's not merging, it's doing things together that we're already, that we can do better together and be stronger together. Another example of that is next month, our anti-racism team is joining with Kenilworth Union Church's Racial Justice Ministry to co-sponsor an event. Why would each church want to do an event on its own when you can get a more critical mass, a more powerful voice by doing things together? We are looking all over the place for those opportunities. Do you want to say that?
She was talking about choirs.
Yes, along these lines, the ensembles that we have here are partnering with other ensembles, choirs, kids choirs in the North Shore area, and we have joint choral services coming up this fall and next spring. Yes, they will come to us and we go to them on 2 separate dates. Yeah.
Also, when you use this microphone, you have to speak into it this way, not from the side, because if you're speaking from the side, you won't be heard. So speak from it this way.
Any other comments, questions?
Ooh, the chair. Oh, no.
It's not a question. It's just I wanted to thank all of you for being as involved. I know there's been a tremendous amount of hours invested here, a tremendous amount of information that's been gathered about us and about trends in general, and just your distillation of it and putting it in the format and in such a digestible way. Hats off to all of you who have been on the committee. It's very important, obviously, given the turnout that we've had here, to a lot of people to see this organization continue forward. And thank you for your time invested.
Where is Spiritual Life, since that seems to be one of our most successful gatherings for people? Where do you find more information about? Alan Mothershed and I started that 25 years ago. So pleased to hear it's still working.
So Alan currently is the keeper of the Spiritual Life groups. He just stepped out, but you can go to Alan. He gave me the list of the groups. I've contacted the leaders of those groups so we can be sure to get to them and go and visit them. I'm having dinner with the Schultons and that group this week. So if you have a group, we'd love to come and talk to you. And part of this is we've got to get more groups going. So we need to, I think, cut it off at this point. It's almost kickoff.
All right. Thanks to all for being part of the process, and drive safely.
Go Bears.